Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Detour podcast. I'm your host, Dan Jones, joined as always by four-time national road champion Johnny Chavaro. Johnny, geez, it's almost the end of 2020. It's a shame we're going to have to say goodbye to this year, eh?
Yes, I think could be our last one before Christmas, or will we get one more in? I think we've got one more to go before Christmas, haven't we?
Oh, mate, we don't know what we're doing tomorrow, let alone next week, but we should get off our asses and get one out before the end of the year. But if we do finish on this podcast, we haven't even recorded the interview yet, but I've just got a feeling, and I say this every episode, it's going to be an absolute belter.
Yes, a ripper.
Yeah. What can you say about our next guest, John?
Tyler Hamilton is one of the great American stars of cycling. Back in the early days when Americans weren't so well known in the cycling world, we had Greg LeMond, of course. I raced against Greg many years earlier, but Tyler was an exciting guy. But of course, he wrote that amazing book that sort of opened up to everything that was happening, the dirty deeds that were happening in cycling, and opened his heart up as well. So it's been an amazing story. A brilliant bike rider, winning world-class events, Bastogne-Liège, the toughest classic on the market, to win that and gold medals in cycling, and to then come out and write that amazing book. It sounds like a really interesting character. So I'm looking forward to today, mate.
Tyler Hamilton joins us live from Montana. How are you, Tyler?
Yeah, hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on your podcast, you guys.
Hey, mate, I saw an interview with you a couple of weeks ago. You seem like you're in a really good spot at the moment. Do you want to give people a bit of an update, what you've been up to, particularly in the last couple of years?
Oh, man, yes. I mean, it's been a wild kind of roller coaster ride. And, when I exited cycling, it was went through a hard time for some years, kind of kept a low profile. And, I've kind of been, I guess, finding my own again and kind of come to terms with everything that's happened and have been moving on. And, life's been good. Life's not perfect, but life's been pretty good. And I'm happily living here in Missoula, Montana with my girlfriend, and she's got two young kids, a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old boys. And we have our dog Sailor, who's a golden retriever. And it's been pretty fun.
That'll all keep you young, mate.
Financial world now. It keeps you young for sure. Yeah. And I think kids make you like a better person. For sure, but you got to practice what you preach. Yeah.
And you said you're helping a lot of particularly cyclists in the financial world. We've talked about it a few times on this show. Is there a big issue with riders, particularly in that transition period, not thinking about life after cycling, not being sort of set up for that next chapter?
I think it is an issue. It was an issue with me. I didn't think about it. I thought it was being like unprofessional if I thought about life, after cycling. But yeah, I mean, man, I wish I'd at least spent a little bit of time, working on some of my skills or working on maybe a new skill set. I've helped to create a foundation now. It's going to help professional cyclists in need. And one of the things we're going to work on within this foundation is a career development, both when you're a professional cyclist, working on your career then, and also, lining up like young professionals with like mentors, veteran riders, and also starting to think about, life after cycling. There's time in the off season, work a little bit on something outside of the sport of cycling. And even during the season, you have time, in front of a computer, and you have plenty of time when you're resting. And there's plenty of time to do some, work on a skill set you already have, or a skill set that you're, maybe someday you'd like to be involved in, And I mean, I when my career ended, I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of struggled for some time. I started a little coaching company early on, and I still have that today. But I didn't know what else I wanted to do really, and I did some public speaking kind of around the world, did that, because of this book that I wrote. But I was struggling as like, what's the next chapter? And I was in real estate for about a year, like just residential real estate here in Missoula, Montana. But that wasn't my thing. And I'm in the financial world now. It's been a lot of fun, and steep learning curve. But I studied economics back in college. My plan was to kind of be in the business world and the sort of finance world. And wow, I'm almost 50 years old, and here I am. New career. Yeah, but it's been fun. It's fun, but I'm starting out at the bottom and work my way up. And, I like learning and, challenging yourself. And yeah, that's where I'm at. But yeah, with my feet on the ground, firmly on the ground. Yeah.
What are all those certificates up behind your head there, Tyler? What are they?
Oh, these are Tibetan prayer flags. It was during COVID. I was like, I had this just a completely blank backdrop, and I had these flags in my garage, so yeah, I like them. Yeah,
nice shot in the dark there, John. Certificate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's my diploma from.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Say a little prayer for me too. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. The yellow one's the extra smart one. Well done, mate.
Yes, right.
Do you think, Tyler, that one of the biggest issues is what you identify as when you're a bike rider? That is your identity. You're a professional rider. So when you retire, you sort of essentially lose your identity. I mean, it must have been even tougher for you with the situation that you went through to go from this sort of massive highs to these massive lows.
Yeah. It was, again, it was a wild ride. Yeah. I didn't, I feel like, when I left the sport, my head was, on a swivel. It was just spinning, and, I didn't really know which way it was up. And yeah, I just kind of had to sit through it and, slowly put one foot in front of the other, and, never give up hope, and keep, swinging, and, missing a lot, but, you keep fighting, right? And you keep, working to get better. And, I by no means have I made it, but here I am, working my way up in this new world, and it's been fun, and I like giving back, and I know I've helped a lot of people thus far, and that feels good.
Iffy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you first started out in cycling, how old were you? I was going to ask the question when you started riding the bike.
Let's see, I cycled a little bit. I was a downhill ski racer growing up. So I cycled a little bit in like the summertime to keep my legs in shape, but I really didn't consider myself a cyclist till my sophomore year in college. I was training with our university ski team, the University of Colorado, and we were dryland training, and ironically, we're on mountain bikes, and they had us doing all these hard efforts, kind of racing each other, and I went over the handlebars and landed on my head and broke my back. I broke my back. It took me out, up to, ever since I was like 7 years old, I was, a ski racer, and all of a sudden, I think that was in like October. So, the ski season was, over for me. I took ski racing pretty seriously. And then when I got out of bed, like 6 or 8 weeks later, they said I could ride a road bike. So that's, that's when I couldn't ski race that winter. So I kind of took, and I was pretty bummed out about that. And so I kind of took my aggressions out on the bike, and, I had no idea, but Boulder, Colorado was a huge cycling town, huge. And, today it's just massive. And, I felt I was very, very fortunate. So, I was out there on the roads outside of Boulder, and, I was just running into top amateurs and professional riders. And so it was a great place to learn how to ride a bike, and great way to, great place to develop into a professional bike rider. So I joined the University of Colorado cycling team, and, I won a collegiate national championship, and, the rest is kind of history. And then I just kept climbing the ranks, and I climbed the ranks pretty fast. And, before I knew it, I was on the start line in the Tour. So,
so that whole process sounded like it happened pretty quick in terms of transition to cycling.
Yeah,
so
for me,
you didn't really you didn't have much of a chance to set some massive goals. Was it all just sort of, we'll just see what happens,
Yeah, I mean,
year to year?
every month was like, oh, this is great, this is great. Kept kind of climbing the ladder, and yeah, year to year, that I kept saying to myself, this is great. I won a collegiate national championship. I think it was in '93, '94. I was on the US national team, traveling kind of all over the world in all these big, huge races, and competing with the professionals in some races, and. Yeah, 95. Then 95, I was a pro, kind of a domestic pro. Racing mostly here in the States, and maybe like 20 to 25% in Europe. Did that for like 2 years, and then the US Postal team they got a bump up in their budget, and we became a European-based team in '97. So that's when I went over the pond. That's when it became really serious, and things changed.
So yeah. That was a question I really want to ask you. The early days of US Postal, you're over in Europe. You were sort of not laughed at by the Europeans, but you weren't thought of in the same class as them. Exactly. And it was pre-Lance. So what was it like, US Postal then in those early days? Quite a few Americans on that team, mainly.
Yeah.
Americans.
I mean, it was fun. It was kind of like us against everybody else. And I mean, I understood that they were kind of laughing at us, and you couldn't really speak the language. Back then I couldn't really handle my bike very well. I was still pretty new at it and didn't really understand how to, maneuver my way around the peloton. I was still really green, and but it was fun. It was a challenge, and you had people that you read about in the cycling magazines. There you are, like riding next to them, and that was kind of like a dream come true. Although I never really dreamt of it because it kind of happened so fast, but it was like, wow, here I am riding next to these, top, world-class bike riders. And, what am I doing here? I felt like I didn't belong, really, to be honest with you. Yeah. But, luckily in 90, by 97, we started bringing on, European-based riders, big name riders who are, big veterans of the sport. And, they kind of showed you the ropes, so to speak, and you learned from them. And yeah, it was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun climbing the ranks. Those early years, those gritty years were kind of I think the funnest. Sorry to interrupt you there, Johnny.
No, I was just going to say that 97 Tour de France was your first, and US Postal's first. Who was the number one rider? Who was the kingpin of US Postal?
I think in '97, I think it was this Frenchman by the name of J.C. Robin. Yep. I think that was '97. Yeah, we had he was in the top 10 that year, I believe.
I'm gonna be honest with you, mate. I've never heard of him.
Look him up.
Oh, well.
Google him. I think he was top 10.
My cycling knowledge pre-2004 is a bit rusty.
Okay.
But, yeah.
J.C. Robin, good guy.
Okay.
And he had a teammate, another French teammate called Pascal Dermet, who was his his guy, just would drag him around. They never left each other's side. Yeah, great teammate, great, domestique type rider.
So what was it like when you found out that they'd signed Lance and he came across the Postal? Did things instantly change?
I wouldn't say they instantly changed, but it was obviously super exciting. Lance was just a huge hero of mine, and just I think a hero of the whole real peloton. And to have him come to our team was just it was just a really great opportunity for everybody. But early on, it was he was coming back from cancer, so there were a lot of question marks. He struggled in his first spring coming back. I know that, but he finally kind of got his feet underneath him and had a good second half of his season. And it was really that next year, '99, when things changed. It was after he had a really good ride in the Vuelta. I think he was 4th overall. And then I think he had a good world championship. And after that, it was like, okay, game on.
Yeah. Was that a real different approach in terms of we're going to go for the tour and it's all chips in and we're going to do recon and prep that people have never seen before? And is it disappointing, I suppose, in retrospect, when everyone talks about the doping and stuff, they go, well, you're doped. That's why you won.
Yeah.
But they don't know all the other stuff that went on behind the scenes in the prep, particularly for that tour.
Yeah, I mean, of course they have to. The doping did exist, so you can't, neglect that or push that to the side. But yeah, we did do a lot of other things for sure. That's absolutely for sure. Yeah, the recon was insane. Other teams weren't doing anything like that. The amount of studying we were doing, and the training, everything. I felt like at that time, I feel like today and these days, like everybody knows how to do. Everyone's doing that. Like the standard is so much higher, I think, in today's peloton than back in 1999. But there was only we were training with power then. Not a whole lot of riders were doing that. Lots of wind tunnel testing. Not a whole lot of riders were doing that. And lucky us, because it was like it was free speed, and free ethical speed too.
So, and also Lance really
we did our homework. We did our homework.
Lance changed a lot of things, especially his the way he pedaled. I mean, he took it back. I think Charlie Gall back in the 50s used to do that, and no one had done it since. Where he just changed that completely. Yeah. Did he convince all you guys to do a bit more of that as well?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was the leader of the team, so typically, the knowledge spreads down from the top, and that's the way he was training. That's how he was getting coached, and so most of the guys on the team started riding with higher cadence. Honestly, by 98, I never even remembered worrying about what my cadence was. And then 99, I remembered, looking at my cadence like religiously, all the time, and trying to always keep it at whatever 100 on the flats and maybe 90 on a climb. Ideally when you're not separate from intervals. Sometimes you do big gear work like that or different cadence works, but keeping a high cadence, and I think it made a difference.
From what I've seen with docos and the likes, it seemed like Lance rode really well angry, and it seemed like there was a lot of us against them, and let's sort of really stick it up. And there was the whole bad news bears mantra with that team. What was it like on the little, I mean, you guys didn't have the big bus back then, but what was the mood like in that 99 tour?
Yeah, I mean, we were the bad news bears. Yeah, I mean, we had two rented camper vans. One, I think like 5 guys were in one and maybe 4 in the other or something like that. Driving through the Pyrenees or the Alps, it would just, every time you go around a corner, it would just rattle, all stuff would rattle from one side to the other. It was pretty funny. Yeah, we call it chitty chitty bang bang, I think. And I mean, it was us against the world a little bit. I remember the media back then was saying, Lance is a strong rider, but he doesn't have a strong team behind him. So that definitely fired us up. Most of us were unproven, but I think there's something to say about the strength of having the yellow jersey, on one of your teammates' backs. I think you do ride a little bit harder, you dig a little bit deeper, and you're that much more motivated. For all I knew, that was my one and only opportunity to ride, with someone on my team wearing the yellow jersey. So,
all right, Johnny, it's that time of the show. Give Mitchelton a plug. Open up the shoulders, mate.
Easy to do, mate. Easy to do. We're one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. There it is, the beautiful Mitchelton Winery, the absolutely amazing Goulburn River. Experience the history and the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards from the iconic tower, staying at the new hotel, relaxing by the pool, recharging in the day spa, where you can quiet the mind, unwind the body.
I can't get the pictures to smoothly go over, but if you're listening to this podcast, it'll be even better. Go.
Rediscover. You want me to start again?
No, keep going.
No, okay.
It always cuts to your face. I don't know why.
Okay. Yeah. Recharging the day spa where you can quiet the mind, unwind the body, rediscover the balance in a setting of peace and harmony. Explore the seasonal menu at the Muse restaurant where local produce offers worlds of flavour. Sample our seasonal menu with all wines perfectly paired. Stop by the Providor and tour the cellars and, of course, taste their highly awarded signature wines. always to be enjoyed. Taste the craft and the care in every bottle at the cellar door. Michelin has become a very popular venue for weddings and to celebrate special occasions. And there's a happy couple right there. And you have to have a visit downstairs, the Aboriginal Art Gallery. It is a must. It's world class with a huge range of amazing pieces from a variety of the nation's best artists. And of course, I think we'll get a glance at the $10,000 Land Cruiser with the $2.7 million paint job.
2.7. Good
Right
stuff. All right. Well, here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Now, the one thing that really stood out of your Secret Race book, I can still remember the day when I read it, and it just came out. I got it like a week before the hard copy. I think Apple had some deal on or whatever. And this was around the time 2012 when there was all this sort of, we just still wanted to believe in Santa Claus, you know. We still were like, please, come on. For some reason, just it's got to be not true. But then when I read that book, I was like, oh, no. There's such detail in this. And the part where I felt my heart rate go to about 190 beats was when you talked about Motor Man. And that was the part where I was like, okay, that's it. That's how they did it, you know. Was there, looking back now, and particularly with the Festina stuff that happened in 98, was there a part of when you guys were doing it and there was this going on, was there a part in the back of your head going, shit, this could go really bad if we get caught? Or was it like, no, well, this is what we're doing and see what happens?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was super nervous about the whole thing. But there you are. This is what the plan is. It's like stay cool in the pocket and just like get it done. That was kind of the way I looked at it. Like, okay, this is crazy, you know, especially after what happened the year before. But, you know, that's why we had this secret plan. You know, it was never on the team, you know, for a very short amount of time. Yeah, I mean, it was super dangerous. It could have been really ugly. And, you know, we're lucky that we got out of that unscathed. That's for sure. Yeah,
I remember that 99 tour very well. I covered my first Tour de France as a journo in 91, and I come back in 98, and this year was the first one I've missed since then. But I can remember watching it and thinking, you know, this is amazing that Lance has been able to come back from his cancer and be competitive in the tour. I never, at no stage in the early part of that tour, did I think Lance would win. When did you guys really start to believe that he could win it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Johnny. You know, I think it was after the first mountain stage. I can't remember what stage that was, but it was, you know, probably 10 days into the tour. You know, Lance had done well in the prologue, and then I think the opening big longer time trial he did well. And it wasn't until like, you know, we had a good mountain stage, you know, and the team also, not only did Lance do well, but the team rode strong and showed that, you know, we were stronger than what everybody else said. That's when I started really believing. You know, up until then, getting through that first mountain stage, I was thinking maybe he could be on the podium. But yeah, it was an exciting time for all of us.
What was the feeling like going into Paris in that 99 tour? Like the Bad News Bears, like he's got yellow. I mean, it just must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think I had goosebumps every time I finished in Paris, which was I finished 7 out of 8 tours. I had goosebumps. You know, I always get goosebumps going into Paris. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty special. You know, coming into the Champs-Élysées with, you know, the blue postal train on the front. That was pretty special. And you know, the last guy in our group being Lance in yellow. You know, that was pretty cool. And after, you know, his story coming back from cancer was, you know, it was massive, not only in the States but really worldwide. So
did the hysteria around Lance, like, it just absolutely exploded after that win? I mean, he's doing Letterman and all these sort of things. Did you expect that level of hysteria, particularly back in America?
I didn't really know what to expect, but I mean, it was probably bigger than I maybe thought. Yeah, but before, I mean, that really changed his life forever. I mean, he was never really the same person after. It was, you know, after winning the 99 tour, he was pretty much a celebrity, and, you know, walking around any random town was difficult with Lance, you know. But yeah, it was a big surprise. You know, I mean, I remember, let's see, in the off season after the 97 season, you know, I'd just done my first Tour de France, and, you know, riding, I was living back in my home state of Massachusetts. And I remember people honking at me and saying, you know, get off the road, you know, you cyclist. And then 2 years later, you know, same time in the off season riding, and people just, you know, yelling out the window, like, you know, go Postal. You know, there was a big change. You know, a lot of people in, you know, 97 were saying, you know, ride on the sidewalk. You know, that's where you belong.
Did you? How did the celebrity status change for you, given that you were part of this historic team that won the tour in '99?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I try to keep my feet on the ground. I don't know. My brother and my sister, my parents didn't look at me any differently, or you know, my friends. You know, obviously, I think my name got maybe a little bit bigger in the sport of cycling, but I don't know. I tried to keep my feet on the ground, and but obviously, you know, with Lance's success, with the team's success, came, you know, more attention, more, you know, coverage in the media, yada yada yada, and, you know. But yeah, it also came with, you know, other teams expressing interest as well. Like, hey, you know, you had a good tour. Like, you know, you could be a team leader someday. You know, after the 99 tours, when I started getting an interest from other teams, and some people were telling me that I could be, you know, a really good bike rider. So
was Lance protective of his, almost like his wolf pack and his key guys, and, you know, he realizes that he can't let you guys of your sort of caliber go?
Yeah, I think he was protective. And then, but he also didn't like you. You know, I don't think he really enjoyed hearing that you were talking to other teams, and, you know, he didn't like that. So, you know, you had to be a little bit careful. You know, Lance had a challenging personality at times, and yeah, you know, you didn't really want to get on his bad side, that's for sure. And, you know, when that happened, it was typically best to kind of move on. You know, and that's kind of what I did. Yeah, but, you know, he was a fighter. He was a fighter. That guy. I mean, he loved to win. He had to win. You know, I mean, for me, second and third and fourth place was great. You know, but for Lance, that was, you know, he didn't like it. And it was about winning. Was
there any parts of that ESPN doco series that you learn a little bit more about the psyche of Lance, that you could join a few more dots, particularly those earlier days when you were with him?
Yeah, you know, I didn't know about his stepfather who beat him. You know, I didn't know about that. He never talked about that. But when you know, that made me really sad to see that. And, you know, I don't know what, you know, I grew up with a fantastic mother and father, and, you know, I don't know what that would have been like for me as a kid to go through. So, you know, I know you can't live in somebody else's shoes, so you can't. It's hard to make a judgment on somebody else, you know, when you haven't been through, you know, what they've been through. So, you know, that opened my eyes a lot. I didn't like seeing that. At all. But, you know, I think Lance has, you know, come a long ways, and I think he's, you know, I think his probably feet are pretty close to the ground right now, and I think he's, you know, I think he's probably a better person today than he's ever been.
So you had 3 tours with Lance, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, three.
Yeah, and so you obviously left because you wanted to have to see how you go yourself. You left to go CSC, but was it just that, or were there other issues in the team that you?
Yeah, I think I was ready. I helped Lance win his first 3 tours in '99, 2000, 2001. I think it was just time to kind of make a change and something new and different. I didn't want to look back in my career and say like I wish I didn't try to try something different, go to another team. And I was getting some opportunities with other teams to kind of ride more as a team leader, and that's what happened with Bjorn Rees and CSC. They had a rider, Laurent Jalabert, on the team, but he brought me into the team and gave me full reign on the Giro d'Italia in 2002, and that was my first opportunity to be a team leader in a Grand Tour. So that was great. I got second, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was a highlight of my career at that point. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun, and the Giro was just a beautiful race.
How did you find the difference in the structure and the ambience of the CSC team compared to US Postal?
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice change. I think. I mean, I had some great years on the Postal team, and awesome memories. But I think I'm ready for a change of pace. I liked the way Bjorn Rees kind of took a couple steps back and did things a little bit differently. I mean, starting from the winter boot camp. Going. I think my first December training camp. Yeah. In December we went to Sweden and slept outdoors for, I don't know, 5 or 6 days and did all sorts of team building things. And I thought that was great. We had, I think we had 25 or 26 riders on the team, and we had 14 different nationalities. I mean, that was the first, let's see, the next year, 2003, we used Cervelo bikes, which were, all the Europeans call them triathlon bikes, because they were, had a funny looking shape to them. We used speed play pedals. We got laughed at about those, these lollipop like pedals. And we had these aerodynamic wheels called Zip wheels. And we got laughed at about those too. And our bikes were, by far the best bikes in the peloton, and no one knew it. And I mean, that's Bjorn Rees for you. He looked outside the box a little bit, and that was a fun team to be on. Just the Danes are great. Danes are just fun to be around. They work hard, take themselves seriously, but not too seriously.
Was Brian Nygaard at CSC when you were there?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, nice guy. He was our guy.
How'd you get along with Nygaard?
I got along with him great. Yeah, he was good. He helped me out a lot. Yeah. How do you know Brian?
Oh, he worked at Green Edge with us back in the day.
Dan lived with him for a little while. He couldn't handle Dan. He threw Dan out after 4 days.
Okay.
Wow, I urinated with the door open, and apparently in Denmark that's a no-go. That was a deal breaker. So
that's great.
Kicked me out. What were the major differences with, say, Bjarne's style to Brunel's style?
Let's see. I mean, that's hard. That's a hard one.
That's what we do on the detour, mate. Curlies.
Yeah. Curlies. Yeah, I don't know. Bjorn took more of a Zen-like approach to everything, and a lot of times there weren't a lot of words said, but he'd just sit there and take it all in. And I don't know, maybe a little less stressful. I don't know. I mean, we had Lance on the team, and he started winning right away, and so that brought us a lot of pressure. And so, I mean, Johan was expected to win, so he put a lot of pressure on his riders, for sure.
And
so
did you have to
I'd
tell
say
the
I had
postal...
probably a little bit more fun on the CSC, maybe a little bit more fun. What was that?
Did you have to break the news to the postal guys that you're leaving the team, or was it break up or dump Lance via text?
Yeah, no, I told them it was during the tour in 2001. Yep.
Yeah.
And then they did made a press announcement or something to make it look.
And did they take it well?
To make it look really friendly,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the relationship changed after that. You know, we went from teammates to competitors from that day on.
Yeah.
Our relationship changed completely after that.
Take us through the 2003 Tour de France, because there's some epic stories to come out of that, particularly relating to your teeth.
Oh yeah. I mean, I went down on what state there was a mass crash on what stage 1. It was in the field sprint, and I think a small little Frenchman went up against this tall Spanish guy, and they both went down, and it created a domino effect across the peloton. And I was a part of that carnage, and I fractured my collarbone. Yeah, and but yeah, decided to keep going because it was still together in one piece. It wasn't like fully displaced or anything. So I had a fracture, and but I was in the form of my life, so they were gonna have to pull me off my bike for me to stop. So I just kind of took it one day at a time, and when I was in the hospital, after getting my collarbone X-ray, this French doctor said, maybe it's possible if you can handle the pain, maybe it's possible he continues. So I took that as like, okay, I'll try until they say I can't go anymore. I'll keep trying.
And the pain was so hard that you just gritting down.
I ground my teeth. Yeah. All these teeth are fake. Caps. Yeah. And I know, but that's what you do when you're young and not very smart. Just that's what you do.
Young and stupid, as they say. It's funny. I'll just say, I had a similar. They call it a green stick fracture. I came back from Europe with that and rode one of our long races called the Grafton Wind Varroa with a green stick fracture and got through it. But it hurts, but it's not like, as you say, the bone's not apart, so it's just a bit of pain, but it's not.
There's a lot of pain. Yeah. But I was also, in that tour, I was lucky. I mean, I still had a good tour, but the first week it could have, if there was crosswind and super, tough stages, I think I would have been, off the back. But luckily, the stages were pretty controlled, and we had good weather, and I was able to kind of float at the back of the peloton for the first week and just save my energy and kind of recoup. And by the time we hit the mountains, I was, not ready to go, but more ready to go than, what's that, Johnny?
I was going to say that tour, IMAX were doing a big feature on you. And it was all about the human brain. They had these massive cameras and what was their reaction when you crashed out on stage 1?
Oh yeah,
but crashed.
Well, they thought it was all over, and they were pretty upset, I think. But I think they were happy that I continued. But yeah, there was no pressure on them for me to continue. That's for sure. And yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just took it really one day at a time, or I don't know. Even like the next day after the crash, I just I mean, they brought my bags to the feed zone thinking that was it. And yeah, I just take it really a few kilometers at a time, and if it was too hard, that was I had a good reason to stop.
Iffy?
No, but I mean, that was 2004.
That was 2003. Yeah,
2003. Sorry, 2003. So that was your last year with CSC. I thought you were with Phonak that time. So 2004 was your first with Phonak.
Then I went to Phonak. Yeah.
We do really solid research on the detour, mate, if you haven't picked up.
That's right.
No, I had it written down here, but I just got a little confused.
It's a long time ago. It's a long time ago.
but you won a stage with a busted collarbone, mate. I mean, I don't know how many riders have done that at the Tour de France. That from the 2003 tour. Is it? You look back at your highlights of your career. I mean, that'd have to be up the pointy end.
Yeah, that was nice. I mean, the Tour de France is the Tour de France, and it was nice to get that opportunity to win a stage. But I don't know. Other than talking to you guys about it right now, I don't really think about it much or gloat about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it was John, we'd probably hear it every episode.
Of course.
Anyway. So you went to Phonak in 2004, and I remember excerpts from your book. Lance really saw you as a threat, particularly that Dauphiné when you ran second. I think it was like, there's a chance I'm not going to win the Tour this year. Did these mind games really start dialing up around that time?
Yeah, I think they were starting to dial up there, and I think our relationship was starting to get a little bit tense at that point. Yeah, that in the 04 Dauphiné, yeah, for sure. I don't think yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a good sign of your form. It doesn't mean you're gonna, if you have a good Dauphiné, it doesn't mean you're gonna have a good tour. But typically you want to be closer to the pointy end of the group there in the Dauphiné if you want to have a good tour. Yeah, I don't know if he was happy with how I was doing. I don't know.
And obviously, 2004 is a really tough period for you with everything that happened. You obviously won the Olympics, and subsequently, did they end up taking the gold medal off you in the end?
Yeah,
how did all that process
work? I gave it back in like 2010 or 2011. Yeah.
I always what is the process there? It's like a FedEx guy knocks on your door and says,
I gave it to my good friend Jim Capra, who delivered it, I think, to the USOC. Then I think it went to the IOC, and then I think it went to back over to Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But that whole period there, I mean, it must have been so tough mentally to go through what you'd been through. What sort of stuff can you pass on to people about learning how to get out of those darker periods?
Oh yeah. I mean, number one, I wish I had told the truth from the beginning. I hid the truth for many different reasons. For myself, for my team, for the sport of cycling. For my old fraternity mates, so to speak, and I mean, I was still deeply ingrained in cycling, in the omerta of cycling, the code of silence. So yeah, I kept my mouth shut and thought I was doing it for a good reason. But it was hard. I mean, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. I would never wish that upon anybody. No. But I just kept whatever. I kept putting one foot in front of the other. Just, I don't know. I had some really dark days and dark periods of my life, but I don't know. My family always told me, my grandfather always just keep getting up and put one foot in front of the other, and eventually good things will happen again. But it took a while. And I had to deal with it. I had to deal with a lot of different fallout from a lot of different angles. Yeah.
So Tyler, take us through the moment. Like there was a lot of shit going on. Things were coming out. You're getting exposed in different areas. What brought you to the stage of saying, you know what, I'm just going to tell the complete truth, and then we'll move forward from there? What actually brought that on? Yeah,
that was in. I mean, it's sad to say, but it was a federal investigation that really. It was like a hammer to the head. And when that happened, there was a federal investigation to the US Postal team and Lance Armstrong. And they asked me to come in and talk, and initially they asked me to come in and talk like voluntarily. It's called like a proffer. But I was like, voluntarily? Nope, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not, my head was, I was hard-headed. I was like, I'm not telling all the secrets. And, so, I got subpoenaed by the federal government. So, which is basically forced me to come in and tell the truth. And if they can prove me, if I lie and they can prove me wrong, I could go to jail. So, that was the moment where I was like, I backed up and I backed up and I backed up. And I was basically at the edge of the cliff, and it's either jump or tell the truth. And, I was like, I'm going to tell the truth. And I mean, I told the truth for 7 hours in front of a grand jury in Los Angeles, California. And, the rest is history. It was like, I knew exactly what I was going to do when I walked out of that courtroom,
And how important was it for you just to go a full cleanse, to tell the whole truth, the whole story, rather than you would have seen a lot of guys since sort of tell little parts of it and not just do a full sort of rinse? And do you feel that you're always chasing your back if you don't do that?
Yeah, I mean, it was time for me. I'd been battling with the truth, or covering up the truth for a long time at that point. I think I was ready for it, and I knew, yeah, I just knew it had to happen. I had no idea it was going to come from me, but I knew the truth needed to come out. The sport, from when I arrived in the big leagues in '97, to the point I got caught there, like, I was like, this is way too big of a secret for it not to come out, because, everybody was in the know. There were a lot of us, doing this, and, it was a big secret. Everybody knew, and yeah, I was always afraid it was going to come out, but all of a sudden now it's like, it's me there in that position. And after, I told the truth in front of the grand jury, and that, when I walked out of the courtroom, I knew, my life moving forward was about being honest and truthful, and whatever that next step was going to be. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but eventually I wrote a book about it. And that was hard. That was hard.
Who was the toughest people to talk to about it once you committed to telling the truth? Was it your family or, close friends? Like once they found out?
Yeah, tell my parents and my brother and sister, that was super hard. That was awful. But when I explained it from the beginning to the end and how it all happened, they understood. They were disappointed, obviously, but they could kind of understand how that could have happened. I don't know. When I talk to, I try to share my story as, to the younger generation. So I'll speak in front of schools sometimes, and, kids are, telling the truth to the kids is hard, because they're like, why'd you do such a stupid thing, and they have a good point. Yeah. But yeah, family members was hard. And then also, I didn't want to hurt anybody else. I didn't want to hurt anybody else with, with the truth coming out. But I know I did. I know it affected other people's lives, negatively, but hopefully it helped the sport, in some way, I'm glad the truth came out. If not, if the sport didn't clean up, it was heading in a bad direction. That's for sure. And I didn't start it in '97, and Lance didn't start it in 1993. It had been going on for a long time. They let it get to that point, and we were all a part of it. And it's hard to point the finger at one person or one organization, but it had been going along for a long, long time, and people just kept looking the other way, and it was gonna eventually explode, and it did.
Well, as an old pro cyclist, I gotta say, of course, nothing ever happened back in my day. but I mean, of course, it's been there in the sport. But I got to tell you, I believe that the whole structure that you're just talking about, when you came out, when it all got opened up, when Lance finally admitted to it, was the best thing to ever happen to cycling. Cycling changed more dramatically than any other sport ever has. A complete 180-degree turn. You suddenly had youngsters coming into sport, talented youngsters who believed they could win clean. Before that, they didn't believe that. They just thought, well, we're probably going to have to go down this dark path. I didn't know what it was, but that was the feeling. So I think it was it's cleansed the soul of cycling. I think I really do.
Well, that's nice to hear. Hopefully it plays some part. Hopefully it played a part. And yeah, I'll continue. I love the sport of cycling. There were some years where I had to turn my back to it and just kind of step away from it. And man, I couldn't even put on Lycra, man. For a couple of years there, I had to get away from it. And but I love it so much. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful sport. I love watching it. I love talking about it. I love that we're in a bike boom now. I love this gravel stuff that's happening. I feel like the sport, all 3 Grand Tours this summer or this, late summer and fall were so exciting. I feel like, the sport's more exciting than ever. We're not looking at Grand Tour winners, winning by 6 and 7, 8 minutes. We're looking at, 30 seconds or a minute. It's been fun to watch, and yeah, I love it.
John, can you stop clicking that pen, mate? I'm going to drive over your joint and shove it fair up him.
Who's got kids over there?
I've got 3 grandkids living here at the moment. My daughter and her husband have just Airbnb their house for the summer holidays and then moved in with us. So
that's awesome.
It is awesome. It's great. Yeah.
I've only got a couple of other questions I want to ask you, Tyler, about the process of writing the book. So where did that all come about? Because I don't read a lot of books, but it was one of the books I just could not put down. Like, it was an unbelievable read.
Oh, man. I mean, Dan Coyle, the co-author, Dan Coyle, it was, without him, I don't know if I ever would have got through it, or I felt very lucky to have such a great person, a good friend, and, a great writer helping me out. Dan knew the sport really well at that time. He'd spent a year over in Girona, Spain, kind of covering the sport a few years prior. So he was the guy, he was the man. And so had it not been Dan, I don't know if I would have made it happen, but it was a process. It took almost 2.5 years. And I think we did like 65 different interviews and, sometimes, hours at a time. We traveled to France together to go kind of, and France and Spain together to go kind of look at some of the places where some of the sinister stuff happened. And yeah, it was a big process and really cathartic for me. I mean, Dan told me, by the end, like at the beginning, the words were just like slowly creeping out of my mouth, and it was very deliberate kind of responses to his question. And by the end, it was just kind of like flowing out of me, just, without any resistance. And it was a process. I mean, it wasn't the favorite thing I've ever done in my life. It was hard. It was hard to kind of look in the mirror and accept what you did, and put it on paper. But I'm not that proud of like what's in the book, but I'm proud of of writing it, and coming clean. And I'm not that proud of everything I did. That's for sure.
What was the feeling just before the book was launched? Like, were you shitting yourself? Were you excited?
Oh yeah. I was I don't know. Yeah, I was nervous, but I was a little bit almost numb at that point, just because I had just like given everything to get that completed. And then, I mean, at that point, it's like, okay, it's going to go to press and people are going to read it. They're going to like it, love it, hate it, or whatever. But, but I knew, like, hey, there's the truth. And like, here you go. Like, I honestly didn't care if only 10 people read it, There it is. If you want to hear the story, you can go read it in that book,
What was the reaction?
I got off my chest, and it felt really good. It was cathartic. What was the reaction like?
Yeah.
I mean, it was it's a little bit overwhelming, I'd say. Yeah, overwhelming. Yeah, all sorts of feedback, and straight away there was a lot of forgiveness. Like straight away, I went from like my name being black to like a ton of forgiveness, and it was almost too much initially. I'd say it was. I don't know if that even makes sense, but it was just a real pendulum swing, and I almost couldn't even deal with it really. So
was that so many people just going, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," and we had no idea to what level, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was almost like, they all of a sudden they understood. Like, before that, they only knew a few things and like, this guy's a cheater and that's it. He's an asshole. But, and then they read the book and they kind of understand, like, oh, I could see how this happened. Oh, I can see how this could have happened to me, or I can see how this could have happened to my son or daughter. So there was a lot of forgiveness, and and there was just a lot of kind of attention around it, and I wasn't really expecting any of that, really.
I always wanted to ask the question, and when the story first came out, about the restaurant in Aspen when Lance has confronted you. Obviously, I think the birds in the restaurant rang him up and said, "Hey, Tyler's in
Yeah.
here, and so he came up
Yeah.
to the break. So there was your version, there was Lance's version, and then there was a few things in between, her version. But so just take us through, because it's an interesting story.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's at this point it's water under the bridge. It's it's kind of now at the time it was kind of a serious story. For some time after a serious story, but now it's kind of a good laugh. But that was when that federal investigation was going on, and there was a lot at stake, and I think Lance wasn't that pleased with me, and there I was eating in one of his favorite restaurants in Aspen, not knowingly. And yeah, I got up to excuse myself from the dinner table to go use the restroom, and I had to kind of walk through this like dimly lit bar area, and when I was coming back, a kind of a hand came out of nowhere to kind of stop me in my tracks, and I look over to I think it was to my right, and there's Lance. Nostrils like flaring, and he was pissed. He was pissed, but yeah, he said we had some words, and
it sounded like he
sounded
like he actually went a bit ballistic, and you were
yeah,
sort of caught unawares. I mean, from reading about it later, I sort of felt that you were disappointed you actually weren't prepared for it, and we could have probably handled it a little bit different.
Me or him?
You.
Oh, I think I handled it well. I mean, yeah, but I wish I had somebody by my side. He had his little posse of people around him. I was all by myself. I wish I had somebody next to me who could have at least listened and backed me up with what I had heard. But it was my word versus his. But he threatened me. I think. I mean, I don't know. We can ask him, but I think he regrets that decision he made there that night. Yeah, but we can ask him if you want, but it's all.
We'll get him on next week.
It's all water under the bridge. Let's not forget that was a crazy time. You can't say what it's like to be in his shoes, and there was a lot at stake, and he was still grasping to kind of hold on. So sometimes desperate. What's the quote there? Like
desperate times and different measures.
Yeah, there you go. So I think it was one of those times. I don't think he.
Interestingly, do you think? What did you think when Lance decided to make his comeback? What do you think?
I was surprised. Yeah, I mean, he had won how many tours? 7 tours. So I didn't think it was necessary to come back, but did it completely surprise me? No. He. Yeah, I mean, Lance is Lance. Yeah, I mean, he'd love to win. I think he probably missed winning. I think he probably missed, being on top. And I think he was kind of following the, previous tours when he was retired and thought, I can still compete at that level. So he went for it. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was unnecessary. But that's hindsight's 20/20, I guess. Looking back. But yeah.
You're talking earlier, Tyler, about a big passion, to talk to kids and to help the next generation. What are the key messages that you pass on from your journey when you are talking to these guys?
Oh man, well, be truthful and honest. Listen to your gut, listen to your heart, right? Find good mentors, advisors, and listen to them. Get a good coach who you can really trust. Things like that. Be able to look in the mirror every day and believe in what you're doing, and believe it. What you're doing is morally right. And I mean, I definitely struggled with that. Maybe it wasn't in the mirror every morning, but it was definitely. In the middle of the night, I was looking at the ceiling, thinking, this is crazy what we're doing. But at the time, it was oh, this is just part of the sport. So this is what I have to do.
And do you feel like the sport has really progressed now? Because there was a big issue, particularly when the land stuff was coming out. People couldn't separate the eras. They couldn't say, oh, well, that happened in sort of 2005 and prior,
Yeah.
they associate it to current cycling. Do you feel that they've moved on?
Yeah, I think they've moved on a lot. Certainly, I know it's not 100% clean because they're still, I see they're still catching riders once in a while, but there's, the testing's gotten a lot better. The education has gotten a lot better. I think people are now, coming into the World Tour level, knowing that this is something they have to watch out for, and they've kind of prepared, mentally for that, ahead of time. For a lot of, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I was, pretty surprised when it happened with me. And I think riders these days kind of know what to, some of the pitfalls to look out for,
You touched on it.
Oh yeah. And the anti-doping controls are that much better. The biological passport, although it's not perfect, they say, it's helping, it's heading in the right direction, but we still need to focus on anti-doping. We can't forget what happened in the past. We can't forget. And we got to, if we do, if we put our head in the sand, it's going to happen again. So we got to stay on top of it, keep the riders educated and keep, anyways, go ahead there, Johnny.
I was just saying, you touched on it earlier on how amazing the Grand Tours were this year. The fact that they were able to even have them at all. And you also mentioned how for a long while you didn't want to get into the Lycra. Neither did I, but that's because I was over 100 kilos. That's why I didn't want to get into the Lycra. But now that I've got the weight back down, I'm good. But just touching on this year, 2020, it's been all three Grand Tours were staggering. But the beauty of it, these amazing youngsters that are coming in over the last 12 to 18 months must be exciting for you to watch as well.
Yeah, it's great. You're like, who's this kid? And then next thing you know, they're winning a big race. And it's a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of unknown. And I think there were some years there where everybody could kind of see what was going to happen. It was getting maybe a little bit boring. I thought all three Grand Tours this year were super exciting, and I wasn't able to watch every stage, but I would at least follow it, online and read about it, and so exciting, and I think the sport is a lot to be excited about in the future. I mean, we have a lot of young talent, just and who knows? And look, we have some Americans coming up in the ranks who are super talented, and I'm really excited about them. And but it's fun. It's fun to be a fan. I don't think I've ever been this much of a fan. When I was younger, I was more focused on like ski racing.
We've said a lot on this show. 2020's shown people being a lot more comfortable riders and staff with their vulnerabilities. We've seen a lot of more emotion in interviews and so forth. You open up your vulnerability more than anyone probably in the sport with what you went through. How important is that process, particularly for even sports directors to show their vulnerabilities to riders and form that chemistry?
I think it's important. I mean, we're all human, right? We all go through our ups and downs, and maybe it's maybe if you're a bike racer racing at the World Tour, maybe you're struggling at home or something, with your girlfriend or wife, or maybe there's you're having problems with your anything. Maybe you're all sorts of riders go through depression, either situational or clinical depression. It's important to be open, and I think it brings everybody a little bit closer. When people are really rigid and closed off like that, it creates kind of a negative, kind of a sterile and negative environment, I would say, and not very warm and not very comforting. It's hard. You're with your team for, as you guys know, you're on the road for such a big chunk of the year, with these riders and staff members, and it's important to be, to open up and be your real self.
Good stuff. Iffy, do you want to finish off with any other questions?
Only to say thanks heaps, Tyler, for coming on. I've really enjoyed listening to your story and your honesty, and it's what's coming out more and more this year in cycling, as you just touched on, Dan. Some of the interviews we've had with some of the riders and staff have been quite refreshing, and not the old cliches that we used to get. So it's a new world. But thanks heaps, mate. It's been wonderful to have a chat and to listen to your yarns.
Oh, hey, it's been an honor to be on your podcast. You guys are a lot of fun, and yeah, keep up the good work. And yeah, I look forward to watching your shows in the future.
No, we really appreciate it, Tyler. And as we said, mate, the fact that you've been so forthright with your honesty, and it has definitely had a really good effect on the sport, because unless you're willing to open up and discuss things that are difficult at times, that's how you progress forward and learn from a lot of that stuff. And it's guys like you that put it out there that has had a huge difference. And the fact that you're willing to share your story on the Detour podcast means a lot, and I'm sure the listeners will appreciate it. And all the best with your next chapter, mate.
Oh, great. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Dan, and thanks, Johnny. Nice to meet you guys. And
you too.
Yeah, keep up the great work.